Hi, Sifu Anthony here from Flowing Zen, and in this video I want to talk about how much qi you were born with. In the Chinese tradition, including Qigong and Tai Chi, and also Chinese medicine, acupuncture, Chinese herbalism, those things. Now all of this is really related in the Chinese tradition, and arguably all of them are part of Chinese medicine. In this tradition, there's this twin concept of pre-heaven qi versus post-heaven qi. Sometimes it's called prenatal qi or postnatal qi. So what is all this about? What does it mean? What does it mean for our Qigong and our Tai Chi practice? And more importantly, what does it mean for our health and our lives? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. So first of all, I'm going to use the concept of qi rather than the concept of jing. So if you already know a lot about Qigong and Chinese medicine, and you really understand the difference between qi and jing, well, good for you. I think that's a topic for another blog post. And I think to simplify things, we'll just talk about pre-heaven qi rather than pre-heaven jing. So let's talk about this pre and post stuff. What is that about? What are we talking about? Really simply, are we talking about before you were born or after you were born? And actually, some people would argue that it's pre-conception and post-conception. But anyway, the concept is simple. Are we talking about pre-heaven, prenatal qi, or postnatal qi? That's what this is referring to when you see that pre and that post stuff. So in the Qigong world, you'll often hear that prenatal qi or pre-heaven qi is fixed. It's what you were born with, it's what you were given at birth, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's it. And all you can control is your postnatal or post-heaven qi. So that's, the things that you can do with things like lifestyle, nutrition, and of course, most importantly, Qigong and also Tai Chi. Is that true? Is your pre-heaven qi fixed? Is there nothing that you can do about it? Is it just sort of set at birth and that's it and that's all you get and then you're done for life? I'm going to give you my opinion first of all, and my opinion is I'm not sure. The end result, we're splitting hairs here maybe because it's impossible to tell like how much were you actually born with and how much did you cultivate afterwards. But here's what I don't like, and I don't think is true, and I don't think is helpful for you. I don't want you to be freaking out about, oh, I was only born with this much qi, therefore I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do in life because I was not born with enough. That really doesn't turn out to be true. If you add Qigong to the mix and you add some lifestyle changes, then the truth is we, and I'll say we as somebody who was born with, let's say, less pre-heaven qi than others, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but we, those being us with a little bit of a, let's say, a qi deficiency in terms of what we were born with, we can do fine. And in some cases, we can do better than those born with a lot, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but I want you to understand that whether or not it's fixed, you still have a tremendous amount of influence over the qi in your life by the things that you do now, and particularly by Qigong and your lifestyle choices. Now, you'll often hear prenatal qi talked about as if it's genetics, and that is definitely true. There's definitely an aspect to it that connects genetics with pre-heaven or prenatal qi. But here's the problem. Until about 10, 15 years ago, the way we talked about genetics in the West was totally wrong. And in fact, we still, I won't say we because I don't have this misconception anymore, but I would say in general, most people out there, the way that they view genetics is, like this pre-heaven concept of it's fixed. Like you're just born with this, these are your genetics, that's your lot in life, and there's nothing you can do about it. The field of epigenetics, which basically just means above genetics, which is sort of a later development of the field of genetics. So the field of epigenetics is to genetics very much what like quantum mechanics or quantum physics is to Newtonian physics. So we've got sort of new physics and old physics and new genetics and old genetics. In the world of epigenetics, we have much more control. I'll leave that word control. Yeah, control is a good word. We have much more control and influence over our genetics than we previously thought. So this previous idea of you're born with this and that's it and there's nothing you can do about it turns out to not be true. So what's really turning out to be true in the latest research is that your genes express themselves in different ways. So it's not just an on-off switch and, some people don't even see the concept of an on-off switch. They just think that you have this gene and that's it, and you're going to, have this or that as a result of that gene. That's not true. So for example, a lot of these health issues that may have a genetic marker, the real question is what's going to turn that gene on or off or in a different direction. That's what's most important. So this modern theory of epigenetics really matches my concept of post-heaven chi and pre-heaven chi, in the sense that whatever it is that we were born with, and there's definitely genetics there, there's definitely a lot in play, that we have a tremendous amount of control and influence over our genetics within reason, and that within reason is something that we'll talk about, and it's very important. But within reason, we have a lot of control and a lot of influence, and that's inspiring, that's good, that's wonderful, that, okay, regardless of what we were born with, within reason, we have a lot of control over how our genes express, and isn't that a beautiful thing? There's an obvious caveat. There are some things that we can't do, and so that's the within reason part that I mentioned earlier. What does it mean to be reasonable about affecting your chi? I often use the example of regrowing a limb, which as far as I know is impossible. And I'm talking about both the Eastern and the Western worlds. So if anybody has ever used Qigong to regrow a limb, I've never seen real evidence, nor have I seen evidence from Western medicine or Western research. It's just not, it doesn't seem to be something that's within the realm of possibility. However, lots of other things, even things that we call, incurable. I'm not going to get into the issue of curable versus incurable. I'm certainly not talking about Qigong curing anything right now, but there are lots of issues and diseases in the Western world that we call incurable that are not, even within the Western world. There are these cases of spontaneous remission or spontaneous recovery, and that gives us, this idea of what's possible and what's not. So that's going to give us our window of possibility. But if it's within the window of possibility, then we can use things like Qigong and Chinese medicine, lifestyle changes, to really maximize whatever it is that we were born with. And that's really my main message today, is that things like Qigong, regardless of how much Qi you were born with, we're going to make the best of it and make the most of it. And in many cases, you are going to do not only better than people who were born with a similar amount to you or a similar condition to you, but we can do better than so-called normal people or people who are born with a lot of Qi. Now, on the flip side, I want to give you the opportunity to take some pressure off. So I've been talking about how Qigong can sort of do all these amazing things to fill in either the pre-heaven Qi that we were not given at birth or at conception, or fill in the post-heaven Qi, whichever way we want to look at it. Qigong can do amazing things. On the other hand, it is a relief for a lot of people to just understand this concept that they were born somehow with less Qi. This allows us, and I'll put myself in that category, to not quite push as hard. And I'll give you an example. Very often we tell kids that they can be whatever they want when they grow up, and the sentiment is beautiful, and it's true to a certain extent, but it's not completely true. And I'll give you an example. So you cannot just decide to be an Olympic gold medalist. There's something to be said that, tremendous amount of willpower, and, you can push and become maybe an Olympic athlete or maybe qualify, but you don't get to decide whether or not you're going to win gold medals. There's a lot of other factors there, and one of those factors is how much you were born with. We're talking about the elite of the elite. In these events, it comes down to, a fraction of a second. So as long as you're not shooting to become an Olympic gold medalist or some other similar type of thing, yes, we can compete with, we being those of us born with less, we can compete with those who are born with more, and we can make up for it with lifestyle changes and willpower and a lot of things, practicing things like Qigong. We can make up for it in other ways. Now, here's a fun fact. People who are born with more Qi, what do those people look like? So, for example, you probably know somebody, maybe they're older, maybe it's a family member, maybe, of somebody who, they can smoke, they can drink, they can have these awful lifestyles, and somehow they still manage to do fine. You know, they can live to be quite old, and their quality of life is okay, and it's just, you know, it makes the rest of us sort of pull out of our hair. How do these people do this when their lifestyle is so bad? My lifestyle is so good, and yet, you know, I still struggle. So the explanation for that is the prenatal chi. They were born with a lot, a big dose at birth, and that allows them to get away with a lot. But here's the interesting thing. People like that, people who were born with a lot, aren't often drawn to arts like Qigong and Tai Chi. They just don't have this concept of protecting their Qi or nourishing their Qi, because they can just sort of, you know, they're like spoiled kids, kids who were born, rich kids, kids who were born with a lot. They don't have a value of $1 or a strong value of what it's like to work for $1. The good news is that Qigong masters, and I'm talking historically too, are often those who were born with a little bit less. That's what brought us to it. That's definitely my thing, what brought me to it. I didn't know this at the time. I had no idea that I was born with less Qi. I didn't learn this until acupuncture school. But something was drawing me to arts like Qigong and Tai Chi. And I think someplace deep inside me, I knew that I was born with a little bit less, and I would need to supplement. I would need to nourish my Qi throughout my life. And, you know, that's really what led me to Qigong. It isn't that a beautiful thing? And then if you talk to people who were born with a lot of Qi, my experience says that they're just not as interested in Qigong. And even if they are interested, they don't practice as much. So it all evens out in the end. Now, I mentioned this about not feeling pressure or not feeling guilty about, you know, keeping up with the people who were born with a lot, because at a certain phase of your Qigong practice, it's really important, because, you know, it helps to frame things so you don't have to keep up with other people. If you just accept the fact that, okay, I was born with maybe less Qi, whatever I was born with, and now I need to work on it, well, that is, I've seen it. I've seen people, you know, in acupuncture college and in clinical settings where people who are given this philosophy or this understanding that there's like, it's like a weight is released, that they put down a burden that they've been carrying for a long time, because suddenly they realize, okay, this is what I was given with. I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to use arts like Qigong, but I don't have to compete or keep up with the people who were born with a lot. And that, if that helps you somehow to sort of not stress out so much and to relax more and just to do the best with what you've been given, then good. I think that's an important message, and it's one of the main messages I want to give you in this video. So what can we do with the amount of Qi that we were born with, whatever it was? Whether we were born with a lot, in which case you're probably not watching this video, or you're born with a little bit, in which case you're probably more like me. What can we do? What can we do with the amount of Qi that we've been given? Well, and I think that most Chinese medical practitioners would agree with me on this, whether they're herbalists or acupuncturists, that the number one thing you can do to supplement your Qi is Qigong. That's not to say that you shouldn't also get acupuncture or go get herbal medicine or use other methods, but Qigong is the number one. And really, I should qualify that by saying good Qigong. And good Qigong means both the type of Qigong you're practicing and the quality that you're practicing with. So a lot of that matters, you know, the teacher. If you learned a really good type of Qigong, but you learned it from a bad teacher, and then you don't practice it very well, and the quality of your practice is low, well, then you're not going to get as much out of it. If you practice good Qigong, you practice it regularly, you go deeply into it, you practice deeply into this art. It's not just a matter of going through the motions. I'm just going through some Qigong motions there. If you practice Qigong and you practice it well, then you can do amazing things. And I'll use myself as an example again. Although I was born with less Qi than a lot of people, I now can keep up with people who were born with a lot more. And that's not, I didn't get that way from pushing or really saying, I have to keep up with them. It was this slow and steady wins the race approach, which is one of my, favorite recommendations for Qigong. Slow and steady wins the race. I've been practicing Qigong for a long, long time, staying consistent. I keep practicing even if I just do a little bit, and I have phases. Sometimes I practice a lot more, sometimes I practice less, but slow and steady wins the race, and gradually over time I've been able to supplement the Qi that I was born with, and maybe I'll say I've been able to supplement my post-heaven Qi, just really have this new source of income for my Qi, and also really protect whatever Qi I was born with. So we don't even need to get into the pre-heaven versus post-heaven debate. Regardless of how much Qi you were born with, you can do what I've done, which is to supplement it and to really build up your reserves and fill in whatever areas of your Qi were depleted at birth. And you can live a rewarding, meaningful, energetic, and maybe most importantly, happy life by supplementing your Qi, regardless of what you were born with a deep and beautiful and enjoyable and consistent practice of the art of Qigong.